Nastya, what's up with the lack of a smile? Katya inquired as she arrived at her friend's office. The two had been besties for half a decade and colleagues for just as long. Their friendship had blossomed at work. Nastya glanced at the ground, her eyes shadowed with sorrow, a single tear slipping down her cheek. For days, she'd been bottling up the turmoil within her, hesitant to confide in her friend about the chaos in her household. But now she could no longer keep it all buried. "My husband cheated on me," she finally blurted out, summoning all her courage. Good grief. What a jerk. How could he? Just like that. When I caught wind of it, he'd already been seeing her for 6 months. He kept everything under wraps. And there I was, foolishly believing that we were doing great. Nastya spoke with bitterness, though her friend detected more behind the sadness in her eyes. 6 months? Seriously? What are you planning to do? Katya probed. I haven't made up my mind yet. Can you truly forgive him? Katya, what choice do I have? We've got 2 kids. We've been tied together for 8 years. The boys have only just started school. How could I deprive them of their father? Nastya and her spouse Mikhail were blessed with twins, Pasha and Sasha, who had recently embarked on their journey into the 1st grade. It was only a couple of months ago that the inaugural school bell had tolled. Standing proudly beside his young boys, Misha couldn't help but radiate a father's pride. On that seemingly flawless day, everything appeared to fall into place seamlessly. Yet, unbeknownst to Nastya, another woman had already invaded his thoughts. She was completely unaware of this at the time. Nastya, cognizant of Katya's firm stance against infidelity, knew she couldn't expect much sympathy from her. Katya, after all, had divorced her first husband for the very same reason. Nastya, children aren't everything, Katya began skeptically. How do you see your future together? Do you really believe he'll leave her? He'll just keep deceiving you and continue seeing her. He won't. I know he won't. Nastya insisted. And how can you be so certain? Nastya, listen to me. Katya persisted, trying to break through her friend's denial. Her friend didn't get the chance to complete her sentence before Nastya cut in. She passed away 3 days back. Katya's eyes widened so much, it seemed they'd leap out of her skull. What? You're not saying? Absolute rubbish. I'd never harm her. But what? Nastya spilled the beans already. Just the other day, Misha headed off to work and accidentally left his phone behind. As I was about to leave the house myself, it suddenly hit me. We had plans later that evening. So I figured I'd give him a ring to confirm everything was still on track. To my surprise, I heard his phone ringing from inside the house. And I thought, well, that's just great. So I went and picked it up. Suddenly, I felt this overwhelming sensation washing over me. My hands started trembling uncontrollably. It felt as though I was being pushed against my will. And you went through with it. So what did you find? Tons of messages. They'd been messaging for ages. They were seeing each other, too. And they were colleagues. That must have been how they connected. Reading those messages, I just broke down and bawled like a fool. I felt so betrayed, so utterly devastated. So I ended up texting her from his phone. What exactly did you say to her? Katya asked, her voice tinged with apprehension. I wrote, I wish you were dead, you disgusting creature. Wow, but honestly, that's hardly shocking. The revelation proved to be quite unexpected indeed. On that particular day, Misha returned from his job, looking as white as a ghost. I queried him about his condition, and he divulged that a colleague had tragically passed away. I began to make inquiries. It turned out that this woman, Elvira, had been struck by a vehicle merely 30 minutes after I had sent Misha a message. And now you're blaming yourself. That's preposterous. It's merely a tragic coincidence. Unlucky. Absolutely. Odd. Certainly. But surely it's not your fault. I wish I could be convinced, but truthfully, something is nagging at me. Well, of course something's eating at you. Your husband has been carrying on an affair for the past half year. Who wouldn't be upset by that? And what was his reaction? He stumbled upon the message on my phone. He figured out that I was onto him. He spent a long time apologizing, claiming ignorance about how things got so out of hand. He assured me he wasn't going to abandon me and our sons, professing his love for us. And you bought that? Katya, it was incredibly compelling. Besides, what reason would he have to lie at that point? Well, it seems you were out of options then. Her companion's tone was chilling and somewhat eerie, though perhaps she held a nugget of truth. Or maybe not. Nastya recognized that now was not the time to heed others' suggestions. She needed to rely on her own judgment. Yet confiding her woes did offer a slight solace. Bottling up everything was no easy task. I'm not sure, but the whole situation gives me the creeps. He attended her burial just yesterday. And you allowed him to go. What choice did I have? The whole team from their workplace was present. After he returned, his gaze was utterly vacant. I couldn't help but pity him. I'm losing it. I'm scrambling to decide my next move, but my thoughts are a jumbled mess. Get on your feet, Katya ordered, moving closer to her friend. Nastya complies and rises from her seat, prompting Katya to embrace her tightly. The embrace brings them a measure of solace. They remain in each other's arms for a while, before eventually making their way to the dining room. In truth, this was the reason for Katya's visit, to take her friend to lunch. During the meal, an air of silence lingers between them, as each contemplates their own thoughts. Nastya finds herself grappling with the question of whether she is prepared to forgive her husband for his transgressions. Deep down, she senses that Misha still harbors feelings for her, though that is not necessarily her foremost concern. What she knows without a doubt is that her sons hold their father in high regard. After all, they are boys. How could they be denied their paternal presence? Sure, he messed up, no doubt about it, but is that really a revelation? Maybe she put a spell on him? Nastya pondered aloud, unaware that her thoughts had escaped her lips. It was a notion she had never entertained before, but who's to say it wasn't possible? They were inseparable, their connection ran deep, and they had experienced so much goodness together over the years. Nastya had never fathomed that her husband could ever cast his gaze upon another woman. It was unprecedented. What? Put a spell on him? Katya was taken aback. Did I just say that aloud? Yeah, you did, but you know what? I actually believe in that kind of thing. Should we put it to the test? Nastya gazed at her friend, anxiety evident in her eyes. How else? She queried. Remember Aunt Praskovia? Everyone refers to her like that. She's stationed on the second floor. I must have mentioned her before. She's quite skilled at reading cards. We can ask her about anything. What do you think? A flicker of hope glimmered in Nastya's eyes. She yearned to know more than just about the curse. She sought answers about her family's future. Should she forgive her husband? Should she pack up and leave? Or maybe boot him out? The audacity of the man. Let's go, she exclaimed, shoving her plate aside. She had lost her appetite anyway. Right now? Katya asked, taken aback, but seeing the determination on her friend's face, she relented. The girls tidied up the table and made their way to the elevator. They descended to the second floor and proceeded to Aunt Praskovia's office. She'd only landed the gig half a year back. This building housed a slew of businesses of every stripe. Apparently, Aunt Praskovia had a knack for making acquaintances, seeing as word about her got around rather swiftly. Perhaps Nastya was one of the rare few who hadn't yet had a chance to chat with her. But now her moment of discovery had arrived. The friends spent a considerable time hunting down the right office, but eventually they stumbled upon it. The doors were firmly shut. With a resolute knock from Nastya, they heard a response. "Come in." The office lay shrouded in darkness. The blinds were tightly drawn and no lights were switched on. A feeble glow filtered through the window that had been left ajar for some fresh air. Aunt Praskovia reclined comfortably in her chair, her vibrant dress a striking departure from conventional office attire. She sported a scarf atop her head, styled more like a chic fashionista than a typical grandmother. Indeed, her appearance was quite a sight to behold. Her lips were adorned with a bold shade of red lipstick, and she wore a collection of eye-catching beads alongside sturdy heeled shoes. Honestly, who gave her the green light to show up for work in such a getup? "Baba Pasha," Nastya inquired, studying her. "Just call her Baba Pasha," the woman replied, a hint of pride in her voice. She appeared to be around 50. I wasn't quite at ease addressing her by that. "Just pulling your leg, sweetheart." The fortune teller chuckled, noticing her expression. "Aunt Praskovia sounds much nicer." "Hi there. I heard you're into card reading. And me, seeking some fortune telling. I sense you've got some inquiries, huh?" "Absolutely, a handful of them. Can you lend a hand?" "First, let's get some light on, ladies. The lunch break is just about up. I've been taking it easy for a bit." Katya flicked on the light, and the office instantly transformed, its once daunting allure fading away. "Come on in, take a seat, darling. Spill the beans, what's going on?" Nastya blinked in astonishment. "I thought you'd be the one to fill me in." Katya smirked. "Hey, I'm no psychic, sweetheart. Just share what's bothering you, and then I can read the cards for you." Feeling a bit cunning, Nastya chose to twist the truth a touch. She opened up about her husband's betrayal, though she cleverly sidestepped the tale of the curse. However, she didn't shy away from revealing that her rival was no longer in the picture. Aunt Praskovia merely shook her head as she listened intently, then reached for her tarot cards. With a thoughtful expression, she shuffled and laid them out before her. "But your husband isn't at fault," the fortune teller asserted with certainty. "What do you mean by that?" "That woman cast a spell on him. I can sense it." The cards revealed this truth. You are not accountable for that woman's demise. It was simply part of her destiny. You had no hand in it. "And what about my husband? Are we destined to be together?" Aunt Praskovia spread the cards again, then turned to Nastya, speaking with a veil of mystery. "Now, everything hinges solely on you. You see, only you possess the power to break the enchantment." "How am I supposed to do that?" "You must find it in your heart to forgive your husband and allow yourself to love him once more. Love him with all your being. That is the only path to banishing the darkness from within him. And if I can't do that, then mark my words, he won't last a year. I'm telling you straight. I'm a third-generation fortune teller. I wouldn't deceive you. The decision rests in your hands, whether your husband breathes or meets his end. Now you know what lies before you. The choice is yours." Nastya placed a crisp 1,000-ruble note on the desk of the enigmatic Aunt Praskovia, grasped her friend's hand, and they exited the office. Katya cast a nervous glance at Nastya. "What's your plan now?" "I haven't figured it out yet." Nastya mulled over the situation throughout the day. Upon returning home, she found Misha and the children eagerly awaiting her arrival. They prepared the evening meal as a family. Misha manned the stove, while the boys, seated at the kitchen counter, scribbled in their notebooks with their father keeping a watchful eye. After viewing the photograph, Nastya realized she couldn't bear the thought of taking their father away from her children, and she certainly had no desire for Misha to meet his end. Once the kids were tucked into bed, the couple sat down to thoroughly discuss the recent events, aiming to clear the air completely. Ultimately, they agreed to put the past behind them and never bring it up again. Nastya committed to harnessing the courage to forgive, while Misha made a solemn pledge never to stray again. They reaffirmed their commitments on their matrimonial bed and awoke the next day revitalized, poised to navigate life's journey side by side. As the months rolled by, their familial bonds strengthened. Nastya genuinely forgave her husband, discovering an ability to love him even more deeply. Her friend Katya, having been privy to it all, couldn't condone his actions, yet she comprehended Nastya's choice perfectly. One afternoon, Katya was on her way down in the elevator, heading to a business meeting, when Aunt Praskovia stepped in. "Hey there," Katya greeted. "Well, hello to you as well," Grandma Pasha replied kindly. "Do you remember me?" Katya inquired. "Oh, absolutely. You came with that friend of yours, whose hubby was stepping out on her," Aunt Praskovia answered. "That's right. She's ever so grateful to you, by the way. It's quite plain to see that you're a fortune teller through and through. You really came through for her." Aunt Praskovia chuckled and clasped the young girl's hand gently. "I hail from a long line of fibbers, 3 generations deep. Don't put stock in such hogwash. The only reason I'm spilling the beans is because they've given me the boot once more, and I shan't return." "What?" Katya exclaimed, clearly taken aback. "How is that possible? You uncovered the curse, and Nastya never breathed a word of it. Listen," Aunt Praskovia sighed. "Nearly every other woman suspects a curse the moment she discovers her spouse's betrayal. And believe you me, every third one will take that bait if it's dangled in front of her. It's as predictable as the sun rising and setting, just part of the human fabric." "But why on earth did you suggest she forgive her cheating husband?" Katya queried, her confusion evident. "Why even bother? I mean, seriously, why must a man's sheer stupidity be the downfall of a perfectly good family? They have 2 lovely children, for crying out loud. Just let them live their lives. A woman's boundless love has the power to mend any wounds inflicted. If this Misha character isn't a complete idiot, he won't stray from the right path again. Or at the very least, he should learn how to conceal his indiscretions more effectively. Nastya adores him, for heaven's sake. Just let her be with him. Are you really feeling sorry for him? So you'd rather he end up dead? How on earth am I supposed to know? It's entirely plausible that he could have met his demise. Imagine his wife leaving him and the other woman meeting an unfortunate end. How could he not turn to alcohol as a coping mechanism? It's quite conceivable that he might have spiraled into self-destruction. But miraculously, everyone has managed to survive and find happiness. You bunch of fools. You can't possibly condone such behavior. What did you expect? Should I go ahead and spill the beans to your friend that her hubby is a no-good cheater who can't be redeemed? And then what? She'd be devastated, drowning her sorrows in food and booze. She'd either pack on the pounds and become undesirable, or she'd drink herself to death. Is that your preferred outcome? Besides, the other woman who ditched her is already 6 feet under. What's the point of ditching your own spouse? You're toying with people's destinies. I'm not taking chances here. I'm mending broken families. My mama did it, and my granny too. But why on earth would you stoop so low? Why not? My paycheck ain't cutting it, and this way I'll pocket an extra 10 or 15 grand. Ain't that something? It's just money. Ain't you got no shame? Sure thing, here's a fresher take. Why should I feel embarrassed? If your Nastya was looking to ditch her husband, she wouldn't have come to me in the first place. She needed a reason to hold on to him. I simply handed her one. Did she regret it now? Nah, she and her husband have patched things up. They're good. So I did something wrong then. Absolutely, it was deceitful. Why'd you tell me anyway? I mentioned they gave me the boot. How can I keep Mum now? Nastya wanted to save the guy's life. That's why she stuck around. If she had another option. She remained by his side because her love for him persisted, despite everything. Do you grasp that? If her love had faded, fear of death wouldn't haunt her. But she's unaware of that. How could I possibly keep it from her? Katya exclaimed in frustration. That's on you to figure out. Aunt Praskovia replied, grinning. I'll give you one piece of advice, though. If you spill the beans to your friend, you'll shatter her domestic bliss. She'll be at 6s and 7s again. If you hold your tongue, then the blame won't fall on anyone. Anyway, enjoy the festivities. The lady bid farewell with a wave of her hand, exiting the office, leaving Katya dumbfounded. On this very day, Nastya and Misha were joyously commemorating their wedding anniversary. Katya had made a promise to join them, as they had planned a small gathering with their closest friends. However, she now hesitated, unsure if her presence would be appropriate. Fearful of saying too much, Katya stood pondering her decision. A couple of hours later, Nastya dialed her friend's number. Katusha, I'm calling to jog your memory. Will you be there? Nastya asked. I will, absolutely, Katya replied, although her enthusiasm was limited. Upon entering the party, Katya's eyes fell upon a contentedly united duo. The husband gazed at Nastya affectionately, whilst she reciprocated his adoration with gentle tenderness and devoted love. Their offspring gleefully frolicked around the festive spread. Observing this idyllic scene, Katya's yearning to divulge Aunt Praskovia's newfound knowledge to her friend vanished into thin air. After all, Nastya and Misha had an unwaveringly solid foundation. It seemed fitting to let things remain as they were, for what the future held in store, no one could predict.